about a very hot topic, and that is defunding the police in America. Guys, my name is DutyRon. I'm a retired New York City police detective with 20 plus years in law enforcement. And tonight we're going to talk about the proposal in America about defunding the police. A crazy, crazy concept, and I'm not even sure where it came from. But at the end of the day, folks, crazy, crazy, and ridiculous. Guys, thank you so much for joining. Hello, Daphne up in Canada. Hi, Peggy K, Trevor. B. Higgs is in the building. Good to see you, Beth. Thank you, Liz. All my channel members, my Patreon supporters, and all of you who support the DutyRon channel. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you coming on in and leaving positive comments in the comments section below. I greatly, greatly appreciate the interaction with all of you guys. We have had a week of turmoil, a week of ups and downs, disappointments, triumphs, but all in all, the looting, the rioting, it's been just very, very, very disappointing here in New York. I don't think any of you guys have not heard or seen the reports on the nightly news about the peaceful protests that we have going on here in New York and around the country during the daylight. But when it comes to the nighttime is when things get out of control. And we have our men and women in policing and in law enforcement who have their hands full. It's not easy taking on thousands of protesters with the current climate in our country. The current narrative that's being pushed forward is not making the police and law enforcement's jobs easy. When you're having bricks, rocks, urine, feces, hammers, and things of that nature thrown at you at a so-called peaceful protest, it makes it very difficult for the police to calmly police crowds, and hence you see some violence back and forth between police and protesters and rioters and looters. Julie, thank you so much for being in here. Hello, Richard. Great to see you. John Smith, great friend of mine. Faithful One, thank you for being here. Matt Sully, I appreciate all of us, all you guys being in on the live stream. So I'm going to jump right into it. Guys, there's a few of our politicians that have put forward bills to defund the police. And I don't know if you guys are aware of what that exactly means, but I'm going to explain it to you guys in layman's terms. I'm not going to give you a bunch of hogwash. I'm going to give it to you in layman's terms. Basically, what they're calling for is unfunding each and every police department in our country and coming up with a new system of policing. Now, how that will go down is beyond me, but if you ask any good law enforcement professional or any good person who has a law enforcement background, they will tell you this is a very Antifa kind of message, and it's part of their narrative, and it's been part of their narrative for a long, long time. So I'm going to play you a small clip from Judge Jeanine Pirro on Fox News, and I want you guys to listen to this because this is important that we all understand it. Winky Whispers is going to be celebrating a birthday on Monday, so happy almost birthday to Winky Whispers. And Joey Brooklyn, I don't think he'll be in on this live stream, but his wife's mom passed away during the week. So Joey Brooklyn's wife's mom, his mother-in-law, passed away. I will be going on Sunday to pay my respects at the funeral home in Brooklyn. So if everybody could put some prayer emojis in for Joey Brooklyn and his wife, Kathy. She lost her mom unexpectedly at home. She died at home, at their home. And I would like to just put up some prayer emojis and some hearts for Joey Brooklyn as we listen to this clip by Judge Pirro. Thank you, Inner Peas. Thank you, Winky. Thanks, Matty Boy. All right, here we go. I'm going to play this, and I'll be back in 2. This is Judge Jeanine Pirro on the defunding of police and others.
Hears that Bill Barr is well aware of what's going on, and I think that most Americans can figure this out, Steve. I mean, Bill Barr made it very clear. Look, we've got peaceful protesters. Thank God for them. They have the right to do what they're doing, and God bless them for taking up this cause. Because I haven't met one person in law enforcement, prosecutor, or anybody else who wasn't horrified by what they saw in the George Floyd case. Then you've got the looters. These guys are criminals. They are just individuals who are just taking advantage of businessmen and women in America. And then you've got those agitators who are looking to incite a civil war in this country. These agitators, whether they're from within this country or outside of this country, whether they're foreign, whether they're domestic, the whole point is to create chaos and anarchy. And we've been kind of hearing about this, but not really experiencing it. COVID-19 gave us the petri dish within which to be able to have this occur. While most of us are in our homes, everybody and afraid to go to church, everybody else is out there rioting, protesting, doing whatever they want to do. And I think, you know, my message to Americans is like, you know, the COVID problem is down. You know, you make a decision for yourself. But that's not why I'm on this morning. This is something where we can track very easily the money, the drugs. We're talking about drug cartels now coming in, and the financial transactions using RICO, organized criminal enterprise statutes. We've got phone records. We've got videos on cameras. There's all kinds of technological advantages that we have that will identify these people. We cannot back down now. I don't want to hear, you know, it's time to let everybody blow off steam. Hogwash. It's time to get back to America, back to business. People need to walk down the street without being afraid that they're going to get their head bashed in by some Antifa person in a ninja outfit with a mask on and a backpack.
Judge, I've got to ask you about the movement that is coast to coast now from Los Angeles to New York, Minneapolis. City Council later today going to vote on dismantling possibly their police force. And now you have this police defunding proposals all across the country. I don't have to tell you, you're a judge and a prosecutor, about what this would do to the nation as a whole when it comes to the rule of law in just keeping order. What do you make of these proposals?
The end goal of defunding police departments is to create further anarchy and chaos. You know, I have spoken at many police academy graduations, and I remind those rookies, now new police officers, that they are the one line of defense between anarchy and a peaceful society, between barbarism and a civilized society. If you want anarchy, get rid of the police departments. But I'll tell you what, from someone who spent 30 years in the trenches fighting, you know, against evil in this country, we have a civil war every day in terms of crime, in terms of shooting and stabbings and drug deals, domestic violence, child abuse, bank robberies. You want to now put the money in the minority community? Okay, I don't have a problem with that. You know, I created a hate crimes bureau. I fought for a hate crimes law in New York. I get it. I support it. But if you think that we're going to take police out of the United States of America, you got another thing coming. Go to Venezuela, go to a country where they don't have a police department, and see if you like it there. There needs to be order. There needs to be some kind of structure or framework so that when people are wronged, there is justice. Otherwise, it's not America. Take down the flags, change the name of the country, and call it a day.
Amen.
This is shameful.
You know, Judge, I was watching an interview with someone who had their store looted. He was an immigrant from another country, came to America for a better life, said, this looks like Turkey. He was from Turkey. He said, I have African Americans who work for me. Now they're out of jobs. I called the police. They're so overwhelmed. It's going to take weeks to come to my shop so that we can try to find out who did this. But if you defund the police departments, if you don't have a police department in Minneapolis, how are those people ever going to get justice?
We're going to return to vigilante justice. Everybody's going to get a gun. This is going to turn into total chaos. People don't know how to handle guns in situations like this. There will be no economic success in this country that we are destined for after this COVID situation. This is an attempt. This is about Donald Trump. This is about the left versus the
Look
right.
At what's going
this
on.
is
That's
about anarchy and chaos versus democracy and a republic of the United States of America being the most successful nation, the most free nation on earth, and they hate it. They want to impose socialism. They hate law and order. They hate the flag. You know, as far as I'm concerned, this is a nation that was founded on certain rights. It's a capitalist country. We were built on the Judeo-Christian ethics. This is a country where one man, one vote, and they want to destroy it all, and they want to frighten us. They can't do it anymore. They can't. I'm going to talk about this on my show this weekend. I've got Bernie Kerik and Rudy Giuliani. They turned New York City around. I'm going to talk to them about what they would do if they were in City Hall or in the NYPD. We've also got Jim Jordan. What's going on in Congress right now is crazy. Laura Trump, brilliant as always, and Kellyanne Conway. There's a lot of issues confronting us today, and we've got to get this country back on track and end this nonsense. And I'm going to talk about how Derek Chauvin should be charged with murder 1. Not murder 3, not murder 2, murder 1. And I'm going to lay it out for you.
Okay, we'll be waiting for that tomorrow night.
Thank you, Judge Janine, for your staunch support for law enforcement. She has just said that she believes that murder 1 should be on the table for the Minneapolis police officer. And she talks about it in one of her shows. This was from yesterday, and I believe she talked about it tonight. Blue Flu Cruise Boston is something that gets used when it's at DEFCON 4 in the police department. Blue flu does not happen unless there's something really serious. And if you're talking about the Buffalo Police Department, the tactics team, they all walked off the job. Now, this is just all part of police throughout the country. Police departments crumbling because of the mayors, the politicians, the governors not backing up the police. Now, if anybody here believes that the police has an easy job handling these rioters and looters and violent protesters, then you have another thing coming to you. The job of being a police officer, whether it's in New York City or Minneapolis or in any major city or any small city, if you have chaos going on where there's looting and they're burning down cities and buildings, that is not an easy job to do. That is a tough battle to counter. We could sit at home and armchair or on Monday morning quarterback this all day long, but unless you're out there with these protesters and you're having bricks thrown at you and you're having people hitting you across the face with bats and with metal pipes and things of that nature, then we have no clue of what's going on. So we could have a situation where total anarchy comes down and martial law is called if things get out of control. Now, remember this. We have Governor Cuomo today. I heard Governor Cuomo today say to a news reporter asked the governor, this was the exact question, Governor Cuomo, when will you go out with these protesters and show solidarity for your police and for the protesters? And he did not answer the question. He completely sidestepped it. He completely ignored that reporter and the question because he's afraid to go out there. He is afraid to go out and join these marchers and these protesters. He's afraid for his life, and rightfully so. It's a very, very volatile situation. Even during the day when there's calm protests, there's pockets of these Antifa and bad people mixed in. And Governor Cuomo is scared to go out there, but he won't admit that. But he is not scared to put blame on his police officers who are out there risking their lives day in and day out on these protests, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. and he completely ignored the question. I will gladly pull up that piece, but I don't think I need to. I think you guys trust me. And you could go and look at Governor Cuomo's news conference from today, because I heard it with my own ears. I heard a female news reporter ask Cuomo, when will you go out and show solidarity with the protesters and show solidarity for your police? And he said, he did not even answer it. He went on to talk about something else. So let's move on. Let's move on. Here is another retired police officer speaking about what happened in St. Louis to that retired police professional. Disgusting, despicable protesters, rioters took a 77-year-old retired police captain, took David Dorn and shot him and dragged him out onto the street. He was laying on his back, clutching his cell phone, taking his last breaths, while one of the protesters or one of the people who were outside that store was calling him an OG and telling him to hang on. We all have seen it. Most of us have seen it. It's heartbreaking, but this is, again, looters, rioters, murdering a 77-year-old grandfather who is a 38-year police veteran, shot and killed him on a sidewalk. More violence has nothing to do with George Floyd. And this reporter, this news correspondent, gives his take on it. So let's listen in on this.
Nicole's drowning in drama. Time for...
Thank you so much, Ralph's Trucking, for the super chat. Much respect to the police. Do not take a knee. Amen to that, Ralph. You'll never see me watch an NFL football game ever again, and you'll never see me take a knee on the national anthem. So I'm going to play this clip for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about here. Give me 2 seconds. Stand by. Here we go. Okay. All right. We're ready to go. This is in regards to the St. Louis retired police captain who was killed by violent, vicious,
respect to the police. Don't take a knee.
Looters and anarchists. This is what you have out there. And if you defund the police, think about how worse this will get.
More than 24 times since this past Friday in rioting and looting across more than 24 times has been targeted more than 24 times since this past Friday in rioting and looting across the country. On Instagram, President Trump paying tribute to retired St. Louis police captain David Dorn, fatally shot while defending a pawn shop from rioters. So how can we move forward seeking justice for George Floyd while trying to keep our officers safe? Here to weigh in, Fox News contributor and Fox
I'm going to
Nation
put this
host
back.
David Webb,
I'm going to put this back
captain,
because
country,
I want you guys to see something. This scrolling that's going across the screen is the amount of police officers who are injured in just a little bit over a week or killed. I'm going to start it right at the beginning so you guys can see this for yourself. Here's in the beginning. Active shooters open fire on law enforcement in Las Vegas, in a Las Vegas courthouse. It's going to go by fast, but look at this yellow lettering with the blue background, and don't listen to what this guy's saying, but kind of look at the scrolling headlines. And this is just in a matter of a little bit over 7 days, around 10 days worth of rioting. And this is how many police officers are injured or killed.
Has been targeted more than 24 times
or
since
St. Louis
this past
officer
Friday
shot. New York police officer struck by a vehicle. Buffalo, Davenport.
On Instagram,
132 officers injured in Chicago. 9 in Pittsburgh.
St. Louis police captain
2 officers were struck in the head with projectiles. Santa Ana.
A pawn shop.
1 officer hit in the head.
So how
7
can we
officers
move
injured in
Sacramento.
George
Floyd while
3
trying to keep
officers.
our officers safe.
21 injured in Salt Lake City.
And Fox Nation host
going too
David Webb,
fast.
who joins us from the South Florida area. David, you know, we all saw the video with George Floyd, and it was terrible. And it was apparently terrible police brutality. That's one thing. But at the same time, so many officers are out in the streets simply trying to do their job. And now with all these bricks and things being thrown at them, they are in peril every day.
Steve, when you look at the list of officers that have been hurt, that have been killed, the fact that law enforcement officers have been killed by what initially were supposed to be, and still are to some degree, protests that are peaceful, this is a tragedy. It's a tragedy that should never have happened. And David Dorn, I know that, there are lots of names on this list, and David Dorn, a retired police captain, means nothing to these looters. When you watch that video, and I encourage people to watch it, it's raw, it's heartbreaking, it's real.
Okay, this is a picture of the retired police captain fatally shot, David Dorn. May he rest in peace. 77 years old, 38 years dedicated to law enforcement in a couple of different cities. He was working security on the side in a pawn shop for his friend. And they began looting that shop, and they shot him, and he was out on the sidewalk, laying on his back in a pool of blood. And the video is very tough to watch. I watched it, and it broke my heart. And this poor man here would have given the shirt off his back right here to the right in the white shirt. Killed by his very own people. Killed by black people. Black on black crime is something that doesn't get spoken about a lot in the media, but it is one of the major contributing factors to the death rate and the murder rate for Black America. So he was killed by his own people, and it is despicable. There's 7 people that are responsible for his death, and I hope that the police and the detectives bring them to justice. Cruz Boston, very good question. COVID-19, I feel, did add fuel to the fire here, but everybody being cooped up, and now it's like so to speak, like a caged animal let loose, and that's the best analogy that I could give you there, Cruz Boston. Always good questions coming from Cruz Boston.
Hear the young man in that video shooting it, yelling, "This is somebody's grandpa."
It's a police officer being hit over the head in New York.
People. And
I'm going to go back to this. Police officer in New York hit over the head with a garbage can.
This is somebody's grandpa, y'all. This is real. These are people. And he is dying on that video. So Americans need to look at this for what it is. Law enforcement needs to take control of this, ignore the false narratives by President Obama, Joe Biden, the other race and poverty pimps out there, and the people who are pushing the false narrative. Are blacks killed by police? Yes. Is it what they say it is? No. In the 2019...
Okay, this is what I talked about, the false narrative. Son, thank you for the $20 super sticker. Thank you so much. Thanks for being you. I appreciate that. So listen to what he says here about the false narrative. I spoke about this early in the video. Let's listen to what this retired police professional talks about.
Are blacks killed by police? Yes. Is it what they say it is? No. In the 2019 numbers of all the police incidents, blacks were only about a quarter of these incidents. So let's get real, America, because you're being sold a false narrative. The anarchists, the rioters, those that want to turn peaceful protest into a destruction of society have taken you over and used you for cannon fodder for their ideals.
And, David, when you look at over the last 24 hours, what seems to have happened as we look at some of the violence a couple of days ago is in many instances, the looters are trying to break into stores. This happened overnight in New York City. The looters were trying to break in, but people from the neighborhood or some of the protesters actually took matters into their own hands and would pull the looters away from the stores because they don't want the looters to make the protesters look bad.
Yeah, and it's about time. I have been saying this since the beginning, Steve, and I think you and I probably repeated a conversation we had during Ferguson. Time for the protesters to take their protest back. Time to take
Loves
it back
New York.
from these
Thank
looters.
you so much for being
They're
here.
Also
Much
destroying
love
your
and respect to
neighborhood.
you.
So are you willing
Yeah.
to let someone come in from your own neighborhood or from outside your neighborhood and destroy the store that your neighbor built with their hard-earned sweat?
Thank you for joining,
Do we want to see
Muka and Sassy.
economic blight in these neighborhoods? Do you want to see razor wire around a store protecting it with private security and armed guards that you reported on earlier? Or do you want to see Americans protecting American business from those who are anti-American, which is exactly.
Let me just leave that on right there. That was Thursday in Minneapolis. Welcome in Joey Brooklyn. My heart and my prayers go out to Joey Brooklyn on the loss of his mother-in-law, his wife's mom. Kathy, we send you a lot of love, and Joey, a lot of love and respect. And we sent up prayer emojis in the chat. If you guys could light up the chat in prayer and hearts for Joey Brooklyn on the loss of his mother-in-law, I greatly appreciate that. Look at this picture. I stopped this Minneapolis on Thursday. The city was burning. This is what total anarchy and chaos looks like. This is what the Antifa folks, unfortunately, some of the chaos and some of the bad people in the Black Lives Matter movement. When I was an active police officer, I saw with my own two eyes and my ears a Black Lives Matter protester back many, many years ago saying on a loudspeaker, "What do we want? Dead police. When do we want them? Now. What do we want? Dead police. When do we want it? Now." And that was over 10 years ago. I heard that with my own ears, in my own eye, right in my face. I had to sit for 40 minutes listening to that shit. And that was coming from Black Lives Matter during the Sean Bell protests and riots here in New York. Look it up. Sean Bell, I believe it was 2004-ish, 2005. So I sat and listened to that. Black Lives Matter. There's good and bad in every movement, and those are some of the bad folks in that movement. So take it from me. I'm a straight shooter. I'm giving you valid information that I saw with my own eyes. So thank you for the hearts and the prayers for Joey Brooklyn and his wife on the loss of her mom. I will be going to pay my respects over at the funeral home on Sunday if social distancing prevails there. So again, let me let this continue, and I have one more clip, and then I got to run.
It is exactly what Antifa, the left wing, the Black Bloc, and all of them are. Black Lives Matter didn't do anything for the issues. They simply use it.
Yeah, and the looting not only wipes out businesses and property, but jobs and tax base and tax revenue going forward. It is a vicious, vicious cycle.
So there you have it, folks. Again, thank you to everyone for coming in. Helen Wilson, thank you so much for coming. Muka, Linda Lawton, thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming on in here. I definitely feel for my brothers and sisters in blue who have to put up with some of the savagery that goes on at these protests / riots / looting. Mahid from Saudi Arabia, welcome in. Salam, my Muslim brother. Thank you so much for being in here. Yes, 99.9% of our police force are good. And the narrative that's being fed to each and every one of us from the media and from certain political sects is a bullshit narrative. And if you want to buy that bag of goods, then so be it. So be it, folks. I'm not buying into it. And I'll tell you this right now. I sympathize with anybody who dies unjustly at the hands of the police. But we have medical professionals. We have doctors that kill millions of people by mistake and malpractice over the course of a year period. We have a very large number of Americans that die at the hands of medical malpractice. I don't see anybody out protesting against bad doctors that kill people. And folks, open up your eyes. There's plenty of bad doctors out there that kill our family members. Nobody's sitting there protesting bad doctors. We just allow it to happen. Okay, so if we sit and we think about this and look at the big picture and look at the numbers, a lot of it doesn't make sense. A lot of it doesn't make sense. So let me segue on to the next piece because I really do have to go. But here we go. Here's another good video that I want you to see. All right, here we go. I don't watch this that much, but he made some good points in this piece, and I want each and every one of you to listen to the numbers of. These are just fact-driven numbers. I actually fact-check this, and it's true. Everything that he speaks about here is true about the numbers of white Americans and black Americans that are killed by our police in the course of 2019. And I want you guys to hear this. So we're going to listen to this clip together, and we'll talk about it for a second.
This weekend on
these are all good things for you to educate yourself with, and don't always get force-fed the narrative. The narrative that's coming out from the media is just a very, very foul package, and they're packaging it up to cause a lot of problems. A lot of problems amongst dissension amongst the troops, dissension amongst Americans is a win-win for the left. So let's just let this go. Here we go, guys. Stand by. Hold on. Okay. So let's just hear this out. Don't listen. Listen to this with an open mind, and try not to not pay attention to this. Pay attention to what this guy's saying.
Many of us, this has been one of the saddest, most painful weeks in memory. Depressing doesn't even begin to describe it. We have watched as mobs of violent cretins have burned our cities, defaced our monuments, beaten old women in the street, shot police officers, and stolen everything in sight, stealing everything. How many innocent Americans have these people hurt? How many have they murdered? We don't know that number. But it's the country itself that so many of us worry about at this point. After we've watched what's happened over the last week, how do we put the society back together? Can we? We don't know that either. If you're grieving for America tonight, you are not alone. Millions feel the same way you do. So many of our leaders, by contrast, are not grieving. They seem exhilarated. They feel nothing as our nation descends into anarchy. They see chaos instead as an opportunity, a chance to solidify their control, to increase their market share, to win elections. They have no interest in talking about the details of what is actually happening out there on our streets.
Disgusting,
in fact,
Cruz.
they're hiding those details. They're demanding that you forget what you
Soul
saw.
for music, welcome
Don't
in.
forget it. Remember all of it, every bit, because it's
Dawn,
proof
thanks
of
for
who
being
they
here.
are.
And
This is who they
hello,
are.
Black Rose.
Whoa!
Cop thrown down to the ground. Another one thrown down to the ground. And remember, folks, hello, Gavin Costa. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Thank you for being in here. Inner Peas, New York City Urbanista, thank you for hanging on out. Guys, this is what goes on with our police there. Think about defunding the police and not having a police force to try to stop this from happening. I think our police here in New York City has done a great job with the problems that they have on their hands. But look at what's going on. Just take a look at this piece, guys. This is Barbarians is being nice. Thank you, son.
That's what they're defending. That's what they're encouraging. It has nothing to do with civil rights. It's violence. And the criminals you just saw on the screen are not protesters. The people cheering them on from their TV studios have no patience for real protests or real protesters. Just in April, Democrats in New Jersey arrested a woman for trying to plan a rally, a protest at the state capitol. The New York Times said nothing when they did that because they approved. That's how they really feel about any political expression they can't control. They crush it. What they support is more power for themselves, and they're willing to use gangs of thugs to get it. Here's one of their protesters. NBC News wouldn't show you that video, ever. Neither would CNN, under any circumstances. No justice, no peace, they chant, as the man tortures a dog. These are the worst people in America, and our leaders have let them do whatever they want. So, of course, they want more. Their latest demand is that we eliminate the police entirely. No more law enforcement in this country. That would mean more power for the mob. They could do anything. It would mean never-ending terror for you and for your family. That's.
Let me just be clear about something here, guys. I'm not just showing you this stuff to show you the bad part. And I get what you're saying, Soul for Music, and I get what other people are saying. But my title of my video here tonight is Defunding the Police. And there is real legislation trying to be put forward to seriously defund the police. And I'm just trying to show you guys what would happen if that ever took place and how bad you think the state of affairs is bad right now. Well, we're in the process of roping it back in. If they defund the police and our politicians push, I'm going to show you the states that are pushing for a defunding of the police. And you're going to be shocked by how many states you see that are backing this kind of garbage and this kind of insanity. So that's the reason why I'm showing this, guys. Those of you know me, I show both sides of the story. I show the bad police. I show the bad actors. But I have to show the bad actors that are attached to these protests. And I got to show the bad actors that are burning down our fucking cities. So, anyways. I didn't think the World Trade Center was going to fall, Soul for Music, and I watched it crumble in front of my face. So, never say never.
Well, they want it. Watch.
And we're calling our ALEC and our city council members and all our elected officials to defund the police! Defund the police! Defund the police! Defund the police!
Defund the police. No sane person would dare to have said something like that in public just a week and a half ago. Now a member of Congress has endorsed the idea, Rashida Tlaib. So what would happen to our country if we eliminated law enforcement? Eric Garcetti is the mayor of Los Angeles, the second biggest city in America. His city would devolve into a murderous hellscape within hours if the police left. But Garcetti, who is in charge of the city, won't push back against this idea. Instead, he kneeled in subservience before the people demanding it.
LA Mayor Eric Garcetti joined protesters moments ago. What did he have to say?
Yes, he came out this morning, Jake, and he took the time to come out among the protesters. He knelt while he was out there saying and showing his solidarity for the movement, for the protesters here today. And I can tell you that today, this daytime protest has been very peaceful, very calm. Lots of chanting, singing.
He kneeled. Our leaders are kneeling before the mob. The atavistic ritual of self-abasement, of defeat. Suddenly, many are performing this ritual, including police around the country. The mob wants victory, but more than that, it wants the total humiliation of its enemies.
I work for Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry that I scared you.
Watch this.
But since I work for that company, my CEO has told me to come out today and to bring you on your knees because you have white privilege. So if they see that a white person is getting on their knees, that shows solidarity for the situation. And could you just please apologize?
I gotta skip over
for your white privilege.
I can't even watch this.
We're in solidarity. One, we put.
really sorry.
For our victors because they have won. We put down our resistance, we beg for their mercy. But mobs rarely forgive. We're on your side, we shout. We're in solidarity. Spare us. But they never do.
Why are you gonna... We're on your side! We're on your side! Holy...
There has been a genocide of...
We are told that that is the single greatest scourge in this country.
For the past 400 years stemming from slavery, there has been a genocide of black people in this country.
I'm sick and tired of seeing black men and women be killed and nothing be done about it.
We had a black man in the office, bro. They were still killing us, bro.
Stop killing us! Stop killing us! Stop killing us!
Stop killing us. It's chilling. And if you believe it and you're a decent person, you will be moved by it.
Pay attention
it's
here.
Awful. No American should ever be mistreated by
I
those
verified all of these numbers
much
that
less
he's
killed.
about to say.
The abuse of power is
Listen
always
up.
and everywhere a sin, and it's increasingly common here. We should always work to end it. In this case, the death of a man at the hands
B.
of
Smith,
police in
absolutely
Minneapolis
not.
turned out to be a metaphor
Because
for
of who's in
power.
charge.
That death has led to demands that we fire the nearly 700,000 police officers who work in the United States, and that we free the 1.5 million criminals who are now behind bars. In America, Joe Biden told us recently, quote, just the color of your skin puts your... It's increasingly common here. We should always work to end it. In this case, the death of a man at the hands of police in Minneapolis turned out to be a metaphor for abuse of power. That death has led to demands that we fire the nearly 700,000 police officers who work in the United States, and that we free the 1.5 million criminals who are now behind bars. In America, Joe Biden told us recently, quote, just the color of your skin puts your life at risk. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey strongly agreed with that. Quote, we have so many people in our country, Booker said yesterday, African-American men, mostly unarmed, being murdered by police officers and no way of holding them accountable. So many people murdered by police officers, unarmed, says Cory Booker. You're hearing a lot of people in authority tell you that every day, every hour. One group of pro athletes just announced that, quote, it seems like every week a new tragedy unfolds before our very eyes where people are being killed by police violence. Each time we tweet, we pray, we mourn, only to repeat the cycle a few days later, end quote. In the words of Ben Crump, who's the lawyer representing George Floyd's family in Minneapolis, what we are witnessing here in America is, quote, genocide. Genocide. If you believed we were seeing genocide, then you might understand the riots now in progress. There's nothing worse than genocide. But is it happening? Is any of this true?
Okay, here comes
we
the
should
numbers.
find out.
Here
Facts
comes the
matter.
numbers.
What exactly are the numbers? We found the numbers, and we're going to go through them with you in some
I
detail
double-checked
tonight
this before I went live with
worth
this.
it. Since 2015, the Washington Post has maintained a comprehensive database of fatal police shootings in this country. Last year, the Post logged a total of 1,004 killings. Of the 802 shootings in which the race of the police officer and the suspect was noted, 371 of those killed were white, 236 were black. The vast majority of those killed were not, in fact, unarmed. The vast majority were armed, and African-American suspects were significantly more likely to have a deadly weapon than white suspects. Yet more white suspects were killed. Overall, there were a total of precisely 10 cases in the United States last year, according to the Washington Post, in which unarmed African-Americans were fatally shot by the police. There were 9 men and 1 woman. Now, as we said, a lot is at stake. The country is at stake. So we want to take the time now to go through these case by case into the specifics. The first was a man called Chinara Feep. He was killed by a Knoxville police officer called Dylan Williams. According to Williams, Feep attacked him, choked him, and then used a taser on him, the suspect on the police officer, before the officer shot him. 5 eyewitnesses corroborated the officer's claim, and the officer was not charged. The second case concerns a man called Marcus McVeigh. He was, by any description, a career criminal from San Angelo, Texas. He'd been convicted of aggravated assault, assault on a public servant, and organized criminal activity. At the time he was killed, he was wanted on drug dealing charges. A Texas state trooper pulled him over. McVeigh fled in his car, then he fled on foot into the woods. There he fought with a trooper and was shot and killed. The officer was not charged in that case. Marzua Scott assaulted a shop employee. When a female police officer arrived and ordered the suspect toward her car, he instead charged her and knocked her to the ground. At that point, she shot and killed him. The entire incident was caught on body camera. The officer was not charged. Ryan Twyman was being approached by two LA County deputies when he backed into one of them with his vehicle. The deputy was caught in the car door. He and his partner opened fire. The deputies were not charged in that case. Melvin Watkins of East Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was shot by a deputy after he allegedly drove his car toward the deputy at high speed. The deputy was not charged. Isaiah Lewis, meanwhile, wasn't just unarmed, he was completely naked. Williams broke into a house and then attacked a police officer. The police tased Williams, but he kept coming at them and attacking. The officers shot him. They were not charged. Atiana Jefferson was shot by a Fort Worth deputy called Aaron Dean. A neighbor had called a non-emergency number after seeing Johnson's door open.
I covered this case.
Might be wrong. Police arrived. Johnson saw them approach from a window and was holding a gun at the time. According to body camera footage, the officer shot Johnson within seconds. Jefferson, that officer has been charged with homicide. Christopher Whitfield was shot and killed in a place called Ethel, Louisiana. He had robbed a gas station. Deputy Glenn Sims said his gun discharged accidentally while grappling with Whitfield's. Sims, who is black himself, was not charged in that killing. Kevin Mason was shot by police during a multi-hour standoff. While Mason turned out not to have a gun, Mason claimed to have a gun, claimed to be armed, and vowed to kill police with it. They believed him. Mason had been in a shootout with police years before. And finally, the 10th case concerns Gregory Griffin. He was shot during a car chase. An officer called Giovanni Crespo claimed he saw someone pointing a gun at him. Later, a gun was in fact found inside the vehicle, and yet Officer Crespo was charged anyway with aggravated manslaughter. Those are the facts.
It's another
that is
word
the
for a criminal.
entire list from 2019, last year. 10 deaths. In 5 deaths, an officer was attacked just before the shooting occurred. That is not disputed. 1 allegedly was an accident. That leaves a total of 4 deaths during a pursuit or in a standoff. So out of 4, in 2 of those cases, in fully half, the officer was criminally charged. Is it possible that more of these officers should have been charged? Of course it's possible. Justice is not always served, that's for sure. But either way, this is a very small number in a country of 325 million people. This is not genocide. It's not even close to genocide. It is laughable to suggest it is. In fact, the number of police killings is dropping. In 2015, during Barack Obama's presidency, 38 unarmed black Americans and 32 whites were slain by police. Overall totals have fallen since then, and they have fallen far more dramatically for African American men. Last year was the safest year for unarmed suspects since the Washington Post began tracking police shootings. It was the safest year for both white and black.
Hello, Kathy, Sicilian Temper. My thoughts and prayers go out to you on the loss of your mom. So everybody, that's Joey Brooklyn's wife in the chat. Kathy Sicilian Temper lost her mom this week. So if we all can please give her some prayer emojis and some hearts. Thank you so much, Maddie Sully, for being the first to get in there. And I've been in a couple of different high-profile instances where I don't know if you would consider it a race riot, but some very, very high-profile protests. Sean Bell, Amadou Diallo, quite a few under my 20-year police watch where there was a lot of high racial tension going on. So I've been involved in quite a bit. So nothing like this. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. So Liz, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Winky. Thank you, Anon. Thank you so much, Polka Dot Suzanne. Thank you. Gavin, I'd love to have an adult beverage with you. So let's finish this up.
Black suspects. At the same time, this country remains a dangerous place for police officers, 5 million people. This is not genocide. It's not even close to genocide. It is laughable to suggest it is. In fact, the number of police killings is dropping. In 2015, during Barack Obama's presidency, 38 unarmed black Americans and 32 whites were slain by police. Overall totals have fallen since then, and they have fallen far more dramatically for African American men. Last year was the safest year for unarmed suspects since the Washington Post began tracking police.
So it's funny. 38 African Americans were killed by police under the Obama administration. My question is why isn't anybody talking about the numbers being severely reduced to down to 10? 10, 9, whatever the number is. I verified 10 here with national FBI crime stats. So, it just doesn't add up. This narrative that's being fed to us is skewed, and it's my opinion. So everybody has to understand that, at the end of the day, when you have 38 people killed, and then now you're speaking about 10, that's quite a significant difference in the numbers. Albeit 10 is way 10 too many, but their progress is being made and nobody's speaking about it.
Shootings. It was the safest year for both white and black suspects. At the same time,
Nobody
this
wants
country
to hear
remains a
it.
dangerous place for police officers. 48 of them were murdered in 2019, according to FBI data. That's more than the number of unarmed suspects killed of all races. One final number for you, because it matters. In 2018, 7,407 African Americans were murdered in the United States. If 2019 continues on a similar trajectory, and we hope it doesn't, but if it does, that would mean that for every unarmed African American shot to death in the United States by police, more than 700 were murdered by someone else, usually by someone they know. Again, those are the facts. They are not in dispute. Are African Americans being hunted, as Joy Reid recklessly claimed on MSNBC recently? Or is something else happening? Is our nation being ripped apart by a total and complete lie, a provable lie, a lie used by cynical media manipulators and unscrupulous politicians who understand that racial strife, race hatred, is their path to power, even if it destroys the country?
So, something to think about. Keep both your eyes open is all I'm telling you. Keep both your eyes open. Don't always believe everything that you're force-fed, including, both sides of the story. You have to really, really keep your eyes open and do your research. So I could tell you, I'm here to tell you that I've seen nothing good come out of these protests when Black Lives Matter is involved. They hate anybody but their own. It's a fact. And you can unfollow me, you can block me, you can not be my friend anymore, but I know this to be true because I've seen them in action. And like I said, listen, I'm not here to try to win you over. I'm here to tell you the truth of what I've seen. And I've been in protests in uniform as a police officer, and I've had someone on a bullhorn right in front of me for 40 minutes chanting, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now." For 40 minutes. And that was during the Sean Bell death at a strip club at his bachelor party. And that was in Queens County, New York. You could look it up, Sean Bell. So there was weeks and weeks of protests with Black Lives Matter. So I have one more thing that's going to probably be over the top, and I may not play it. I'm just going to see if I still have it queued up. Okay, so did anybody here see a video on Facebook by a young 31-year-old black female, Candace Owens? Did anybody see that video? I could raise my hand because it was shared 33 million times. Did anybody see that video where she spoke out? And I thought it was in bad taste that she did it on the day of his memorial service. She put that video out on the day of his memorial service talking about George Floyd and how his criminal history and how she thought as a black woman that it was ridiculous that her people are more to listen, like I said, I felt that it was in bad taste that she put it out there, but I listened to it two or three times, And I think that she made some really good points. She unequivocally said what was done to him should not be done to anybody, and we all agree. The cop is a vicious, evil, devil, criminal, should be behind bars for the rest of his life. But I have to say, what she spoke and how she said it made a lot of sense. And she broke down her feeling as a black female. And none of us here, no women here who are not black, can actually put themselves in her shoes, and no white man can put himself in the shoes of a black man. But I know quite a few who actually agree with her. So, hi Janice, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining. So I think I want to play it for those of you who haven't seen it. And I want to say that I don't agree with the timing of how she put that out, but I agree with her freedom of speech. We all have the freedom to express ourselves, and she brings up some valid points about his criminal past and about how he's glorified and people want to wear shirts with him, with his name on it, and she chooses to wear a shirt with Kobe Bryant and as her role model as a successful black man. Joey Brooklyn, did you see that? Did anybody here not see it? Anybody from outside the country did not see it? I'm going to play it. I guess I'll play it. I mean, listen, like I said, don't come after the messenger here. I'm just trying to play this because this ties into the Defund the Police movement. This really ties into the Defund the Police movement. So I'm going to play it. See if I even have it. I don't know if I saved it. Oh, I did. Okay, here it is. All right, here we go. And then we'll end it after this. Let me get it back. I know I don't have the volume.
Family, I have decided to do this video. It has been weighing very heavily on my heart and on my mind as well. And it was something that I wanted to say early on, but there were so many emotions and so much pressure for me to go with the popular opinion about who George Floyd was. And sometimes it can be difficult when there are just so many external pressures to say what you believe. And this was an instance where I felt like my silence would have been better in the beginning, but the more that I think about it, I realize that we are being sold a lot of lies, and at the detriment to the black community, at the detriment to the white community, and at the detriment to America as a whole. So I want to come out and say that I do not support George Floyd and the media depiction of him as a martyr for Black America. I'm going to explain why, and I hope that some of you guys will understand where I'm coming from. I have spent a considerable amount of time reading a lot of Black authors that I think are some of the most brilliant Black Americans breathing. Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Thomas Sowell, and I recently came across something that was an idea that was planted into my head by Shelby Steele, and it has been something that I cannot forget. It is something that will stick with me for the rest of my life. And it is something that I hope for the Black Americans that are watching will stick with you for the rest of your life. Shelby Steele said that the Black community is unique from other communities. Our culture is unique from other communities because we are the only community that caters to the bottom denominator of our society. Now, let me explain what that means. It means to say that not every Black American is a criminal, not every Black American is committing crimes, but we are unique in that we are the only people that fight and scream and demand support and justice for the people in our community that are up to no good. You would be hard pressed to find, a Jewish person who has spent 5 stints in prison, who commits a crime and dies while committing a crime, and that the Jewish people champion and demand justice for. You will be hard pressed to find this in white America. You'll be hard pressed to find this even in Latino America. If there is a person that is spent multiple times in prison, you are not going to see a bunch of Latinos coming out demanding justice for this person, even if, and I want to be very clear, what I'm saying is not any defense for Derek Chauvin. I hope Derek Chauvin gets the justice that he deserves to be, implemented upon him, and that the family of George Floyd deserves justice for the way that he died. But I also am not going to accept the narrative that this is the best the Black community has to offer. For whatever reason, it has become fashionable over the last 5 or 6 years for us to turn criminals into heroes overnight. And it is something that I find to be despicable, and it is something that I refuse to stand by any longer, and I am not going to play a part in it, no matter how much pressure comes from Black liberals and Black conservatives as some token of people wanting you to believe that this is the only way you can be Black, is you have to say this was wrong and that this person was amazing. I won't do that. George Floyd was not an amazing person, and as soon as this video hit the internet, I did just basic searches. Everyone jumped on it and was looking at the police officer, and everyone agrees that the police officer was wrong, and the police officer has been arrested. So that is not the reason I'm not discussing that, is because that is not something that has been misconstrued in the media. He has been turned into the devil that he is, and there is no reason for us to harp on that any longer, because white Americans are not uplifting Derek Chauvin as a victim or pretending that he's an amazing human being. But George Floyd is being uplifted as an amazing human being. For those of you who have not yet seen the clips and did not pursue or wait for more clips to come out, first and foremost, George Floyd at the time of his arrest was high on fentanyl, and he was high on methamphetamine. This came back in both of his autopsy reports. If you pursue the 911 transcript, you can see the person describing somebody who is out of their mind high, and which is what made the person fearful, because he tried to use a bill that I guess was a fake bill to purchase something, and then he was outside acting weird, and they, in their police call, said that this person was obviously distorted on drugs. When he is put into handcuffs and is put against the wall, a baggie of what looks to be like cocaine or it's a white baggie that he drops onto the floor that you can see in an image. If you look up the clip, the media is refusing to circulate it. You can find it on Twitter. If you use DuckDuckGo and look up George Floyd baggie, you can watch the clip yourself with your own eyes. He had drugs on him at the time of his arrest. Now, barring all of that, nobody thinks that he should have died during this arrest, but what I find despicable to be is that everyone is pretending that this man lived a heroic lifestyle when he didn't, and I want to talk about what his lifestyle was leading up to this moment, and why I refuse to accept the narrative that this person is a martyr or should be lifted up in the Black community, and that we should be buying t-shirts with his name on it, okay? So here we have, first and foremost, let's start from the bottom of his record. And by the way, I am not saying that if you have a record, you don't deserve a second chance. I think people get arrested, and some people can serve time in prison, and I believe in second chances, but I do draw the line when it comes to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth chances. 1998, he spent 10 months in prison
People
for
won't
theft
listen
with
to
a
that,
firearm.
Cruz Weston.
That was the first prison stint that I could find on him. In 2002, he spent 8 months in prison for a cocaine offense. In 2004, just 2 years later, he spent another 10 months in prison for a cocaine offense. In 2005, he spent another 10 months in prison for having less than 1 gram of cocaine on him again. In 2007, and this was the biggest instant that I had that made me realize this was a horrible human being that I am not going to pretend was a good person. In 2005, a woman who was pregnant received a knock at the door, and she went to the door, and the person pretended to be someone that worked for the water department. So she opened her door and quickly realized that the person at her door did not work for the water department, and attempted to slam it. At the moment that she was attempting to slam it, a Ford pulled up, and another 5 men jumped out of the car, and one of which was George Floyd, came up to the door, and they forced their way inside to her home, inside of her home. Mind you, this woman is pregnant. At that point, George Floyd took out a gun and pressed it to her stomach. She was screaming, begging for her life, and he put her inside of her living room and instructed one of his criminal friends that was with him to watch her and to make sure she didn't leave the living room. So he was playing guard while they ransacked her home looking for drugs and money. They did not find drugs. They ended up taking, I believe, her wallet and her cell phone. Fortunately for her, her neighbor observed what was going on and caught the license plate of the people as they pulled off and called 911. And when 911 was able to, they were able to track down the car of which George Floyd was the driver, and they arrested him. And 2 years later, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for that instance. Now, you can say the media is portraying it like he was just getting his life together after, being released in 2014 following that incident. He was just getting his life together and moved and was going to start afresh. I'd like to believe all of those things, and there's a gap, and he never got in trouble for 5 years until this incident when the police were called on him again. But you are defying common sense to believe that this person suddenly became an exemplary character but happened to be high on fentanyl and methamphetamine and trying to use a bill, a fake bill, to purchase something. And so, in my opinion, George Floyd was a criminal. He was a criminal. And just because he was a criminal doesn't mean he deserved to die at the knee of a police officer. But it does mean that I am not going to play a part of the broken Black culture that always wants to martyr criminals, who wants to pretend they were these upstanding human beings that just wanted to help society, that just wanted to reach out and uplift society. And he has a rap sheet that is long, that is dangerous. He was an example of a violent criminal his entire life. Okay, up until the very last moment. Now, again, I want to be clear. This is not a defense for Derek Chauvin. No one that I have spoken to, no one in the news is defending Derek Chauvin. He is getting what he has coming to him. Okay, great. But why are we pretending that this criminal should be upheld as a citizen, as a martyr in Black America? A martyr for a fake narrative, by the way. Police brutality, racially motivated police brutality is a myth. Okay, so let's get into that. Not only are we using this death, right, and allowing it to cause these riots and protests, pretending this was some upstanding citizen in the Black community who was tackled down and killed for no reason, right? Not only are we allowing it to inspire riots in which Black people are dying, in which actual upstanding Black citizens are dying. Case in point, I'm sure you guys have all now seen David, the sheriff that just was shot and killed because he was trying to protect a pawn shop. Please look him up if you haven't seen it. I'm blanking on his last name. His first name is David, who was shot and killed for trying to protect a pawn shop from looters. An upstanding citizen, an actual head of a police. He was the head of a police his entire life, 77 years old, did everything right? So we now have to kill upstanding Black citizens because a non-upstanding Black citizen, a career Black criminal, died. Now, did he deserve to die in that manner? No. I can't say it enough. No, he didn't deserve to die in that manner. But I will be damned if the rest of us upstanding Black citizens have to suffer because of this incident that rarely ever happens in America. So here are some numbers for you people that are still believing that police brutality is a real, racially motivated police brutality is a real thing. First and foremost, okay, you have a 25% higher chance as a violent white criminal of dying at the hands of a police officer than you do as a Black criminal. Last year, a total of 9 unarmed black men were killed by police officers and 19 white men were killed by police officers. For those of you that aren't good at mathematics, right, you might be thinking, oh, but Candace, white people represent 60% of the population and Black people represent just 13% of the population. It doesn't matter what percentage of the population you represent. It matters what percentage of the violent criminal community you represent. And unfortunately, Black community commits a disproportionate amount of crimes compared to the white community. Let me tell you, 6% of the population, right? Black men, 6% of the population account for 44% of all murders in this country, according to 2018 statistics. That is what you call a gap. And yet white people who represent 60% of the population, we represent 13, Black men are 6%, only represent 50% of all the murders, right? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. A 6-point variation in a community where we are extreme minorities. We commit 50% of all violent offenses, evenly split, and we're only 13% of the population, okay? So we have a lot more encounters with police officers. And don't say the police officers are coming around because we're black. I'm talking about violent criminals. I'm talking about murder, 44% of murders, okay? You want to talk about real statistics? The police officers have way more to be fearful of in the black community than the other way around, okay? We commit, on average, a police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around. Okay, so this entire narrative is complete smoke and mirrors. It's all made up. It's just election fodder. It's white versus black because it's an election year, not because black Americans are suffering at the hands of police officers more than white Americans. Do some police officers do the wrong thing? Yes. I don't think there's anybody in the world who has not encountered a police officer and thought this person is an absolute jerk who is power tripping, whether you are black or white. We know they exist. And we know they're always going to exist, by the way, because they're human beings. And sometimes human beings suck. In fact, if you want to attack a community for accidental slayings or brutality, did you know that doctors accidentally kill 250,000 people every year because of mistakes? Did you know there's been doctors that have been arrested for being serial killers that just were killing people because they wanted to? Do we protest and boycott doctors? Do we assume all doctors are horrible human beings because some doctors are? Or do we realize that society is not perfectible? People suck in every profession. It is no excuse to paint society with a broad brush. It is certainly no excuse to accept a Democrat narrative, okay, that black people are being disproportionately hunted down by police officers because of the color of their skin. You want to know the best way to avoid not being brutalized by a police officer is to limit the amount of encounters you need to have with them, especially when it comes to violent crimes. Okay? I am not going to stand for this continual bottom-feeding narrative of us martyring people that have had 5, 6, 7 stints in prison and then pretending they were upstanding heroes to our community. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Excuse my language. It's absolute bullshit, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having to play pretend. I'm tired of sitting here and being called a coon or an Uncle Tom because I won't play this bottom-feeding game with you. If you want to hang up posters of criminals on your wall and talk about them as your martyrs, do it. Do it. You can do it. Kobe Bryant was my idol, okay? I'll keep a photo of Kobe Bryant. You can keep one of George Floyd and pretend he was an upstanding human being that just once or twice put a gun across a pregnant woman's belly. Could you imagine that woman right now? That black woman, by the way? Right? Watching everybody pretend this person was an upstanding human being who just at the age of 42 and 5 prison stints was going to get his life together. I mean,
all right, I'm going to stop it there. I played the video for a reason. Played the video because I want you guys to hear from all different sides. I've done videos where we talked about whole different aspects of this situation. We can all agree, and nobody is disputing, that the way George Floyd died was heinous, was evil, was devilish. This cop and the rest of them are all going to be in jail for the rest of their lives, and justice will be served. But she brings up a couple of really valid points that I verified, and it's the figures. We're being force-fed that police throughout the United States are slaughtering black men, unarmed black men, and that's not the truth. It's not the truth. Like I said, you can disagree with me, and I will still be your friend. I'm not going to say that you're 100% wrong and I'm 100% right. We can agree to disagree, and that's what's great about the freedom of speech. I'm doing the live stream. We're talking about it. I want to bring both sides of the table. Don't kill the messenger. Don't hurt our relationship because I showed that. I only showed that so I wanted to see, and I wanted you guys to hear everything that's out there, whether it's political, whether it's not. She brings up some valid points. Some of her things, like I said, the timing of how she put that out, I fully would never do that. She put that video out the day that he was being memorialized, and his body was in that at the church with many people, his family mourning him. So I didn't agree with that. But I did watch it. This was the third time I watched it. And I got to say, there was the points that she made that were quite valid. I do feel that we are being force-fed a narrative of conquer and divide. Some people want to see our country divided. Because don't forget, when our last election came out, it was a split. You know, it was a close split, and so you have 40 some odd % of America on one side and 50 some odd on the other, percentage wise. So yes, these are politically driven narratives that are force fed to you with no backing up the sources. When you start talking about young unarmed black men being slaughtered by our nation's police, that's a hogwash. And I use that word always. I always say this. It's hogwash. It's a bunch of bullshit. Because no police officer straps on a uniform and says, I'm going to go out and kill an unarmed black man, or I'm going to go out and kill anybody for that matter. I used to pray before I would go out into the street that I didn't have to kill somebody. That I prayed that nobody put me in a position where I had to use deadly physical force. And most good police officers feel that same way, you know? But when you're dealing with hostile protesters and people throwing rocks at your head and telling you they want you to die and spitting in your face and saying we hate the police, you automatically get on a defensive mode, you know? They get on this defensive mode. The media wants to just put out a story and force feed you what they want you to hear. So guys, I'm wishing you a lot of love and respect. I thank each and every one of you for respectfully interacting in the comments section down below and here in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's given super chat, to my Patreon supporters, my channel members. I value you guys. And again, I told you I was going to play this video because I want you guys to see both sides of the story. And you can go and listen to the other side. If you agree that the police should be defunded and that we should have no police out there, it's probably not a thing that maybe you should rethink that. Maybe you should just definitely rethink that. But much love and respect from my house to yours. God bless the world. God bless the United States of America, and most importantly, God bless each and every one of us and all victims of crime throughout the United States and the people who are getting hurt, injured, and killed during these riots and during these hostile times that we're in. So thank you so much to my moderators, all of my channel members, and all the people who are here all the time. Thank you, Soul for Music. I appreciate that. Listen, I'm not always going to go live with what everybody wants to hear. That's what makes it tough to cover both sides of a story. Mark, thank you so much for that super chat. I appreciate that. Semplify. I appreciate you. Listen, like I said, you guys have to understand, it can't always just be one way. I have to talk about both sides of the coin. I can't always stay just right in the middle. So guys, thank you so much for cooperating and peacefully having a conversation. So thank you for the super love. Thank you for that super love. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thanks for showing both sides, Ron. Semplify.
I got to change that because it always interrupts me. But thank you for that. Guys, I will talk to you soon on the next one. Love and respect from New York City. Stay safe. And remember, coronavirus is still out there. Let's be careful. The numbers are starting to go up here in New York. Our cases went from 48, I think, to 84. I think they doubled.